The Dinner Party. Part 1. Let me tell you about a problem which put my uncle Octavian in a difficult position 30 years ago. 30 years ago, I myself was 15. That is not really important, so it was important to me all the time. More important to this story is that my uncle Octavian was then, in 1925, a rich man in the best part of his life, and his villa at the sea was a meeting place of rich people. He was a hospitable and the most pleasant man until January 3, 1925. There was nothing special about that day in the life of my uncle Octavian, except that it was his 55th birthday. As usual on such a day, he was giving a dinner party, a party for 12 people, all of them were old friends. I was staying with my uncle at his beautiful villa near the sea, and on that happy day, my uncle invited me to dinner. I was glad to be in such a company. The company included two rich ladies and their husbands, a newspaper owner and his beautiful American wife, a minister of France, a statesman of Germany, a Habsburg prince and princess. At that age, on holiday from school, you will understand that I was very glad. Even today, 30 years later, I can tell you that the company was excellent, and I tell you that they were all old and close friends of my uncle Octavian. Towards the end of that wonderful dinner, when the servants had left, my uncle turned to the princess to see a wonderful diamond ring on her hand. I remember that the diamond in her ring shone in the light as she turned her hand towards my uncle. Across the table, the newspaper owner said, "May I also have a look, Sri? Dear Teresa." She smiled, then she took off the ring and gave it to him. "It was my grandmother's ring," she said. "I have not worn it for many years." Everybody in the room wanted to see the ring. The ring was passed from hand to hand. For a moment it stayed in my own hand. Then I passed it on to my neighbor. I remember that she passed it on. I was almost sure of that. 20 minutes later the princess stood. It was the signal for the ladies to leave the room. She looked around us with a pleasant smile. Then she said, "Before we leave you, may I have the ring back?" I remember that my uncle Octavian said, "Oh yes, that wonderful ring." I remember that the newspaper owner said, "Oh, you must not forget that." And one of the women laughed. Then there was a pause. Each of us looked at his neighbor. Then there was a silence. The princess was still smiling, so less easily. She didn't like to ask for things twice. "If you please," she said proudly, "then we can leave the gentlemen to their wine."